By the time the boats drifted back into Luthmere, no one on the docks realized the journey had returned with more than exhausted adventurers. Hidden among the supplies were 3 level 12 mana stones, silent proof that the Sunken Shrine expedition had crossed a line few quests ever survived. Wrapped in a weathered cloak, Ceres watched the bustling town with uncertain eyes, awakening to a future that had left her entire world behind. As the river bells welcomed another ordinary evening, Jihan's system quietly revealed a different truth. Second stage progress had reached 43%, and destiny was already moving again. Mayor Corvin hurried to greet the returning party with his usual confidence, but the moment his eyes met Ceres, every practiced word disappeared. The ancient shrine markings on her arm spoke louder than introductions, hinting at a history even the town's oldest records could barely remember. When Vela revealed that Ceres was the last keeper of the forgotten spatial shrine, whispers spread across the docks faster than the river current itself. Instead of celebrating her rescue, Ceres asked a single heartbreaking question: how much of her world was still alive? No one could answer. Jihan knew comforting lies would only delay the pain, so he chose the harder path and told Ceres the truth. The shrine order had vanished, the ancient war had ended centuries ago, and the closed eye survived only as a criminal force hiding in the shadows. Ceres accepted every word in silence, though the way her hands gripped the cloak revealed a grief too deep for tears. Watching quietly, Mirael understood that surviving the past was one battle. Learning to live in a world that had forgotten you was another entirely. Their impossible adventure soon became official history as the Adventurer Guild transformed every unbelievable event into written record. Amara Dusk carefully verified the mana stones, the shrine incident, and Ceres's testimony, knowing that history often hid inside ordinary paperwork. One by one, Kale, Selene, Maris, Rilke, and NYM added their accounts until doubt had nowhere left to stand. When the guild finally approved the mission, Jihan earned far more than rewards. He earned a reputation that even experienced adventurers could no longer ignore. Knight Elise Varro studied the completed report expecting to find another reckless gamble driven by ambition. Instead, every page painted a different picture, one of careful decisions, impossible odds, and lives saved when they should have been lost. Rescuing Ceres, protecting the expedition, and securing the shrine's blessing had never come at the cost of abandoning his companions. Jihan simply replied that profit meant nothing if no one survived to enjoy it. For the first time, Elise answered with a smile instead of suspicion. Back at the Blue Heron house, Jihan finally laid the 3 level 12 mana stones on the table. Even after everything they had survived, the sight of them made the room fall completely silent. The stones radiated an overwhelming energy, reminding everyone that the Sunken Shrine had rewarded them with something far more valuable than treasure. Lyra warned that the lingering shrine resonance was unstable and deserved respect, not excitement. Before Jihan could decide what to do next, Ceres quietly revealed that the ancient resonance could become a blessing, if it was purified correctly. With that possibility in mind, Jihan led Mirael, Lyra, Ceres, and Rhea into the infinite space portal, hoping the hidden workshop would reveal its answer. The moment the mana stones entered the domain, the workshop awakened as though it had been waiting for this exact day. New crafting stations emerged from streams of mana light, each one hinting at technology far beyond their current business. Then the system delivered the breakthrough Jihan had been waiting for. Aurelis' house was no longer limited to cosmetics, it could step into medical supplies. Lyra explained why that single announcement mattered more than it first appeared. The greatest problem was never the healing potions themselves, but the fragile containers that wasted precious medicine before it reached those who needed it. Every broken bottle quietly raised prices across the kingdom, leaving ordinary families to carry the burden. Jihan immediately saw the opportunity. If they could solve the container problem, they would improve an entire supply network instead of selling just another product. While everyone considered the idea, Mirael was already calculating what such a business could become. She compared production costs, transport risks, mana expenses, and demand from every major customer they could reach. The profits would not rival Lumasilk at first, but the market was vastly larger and far more dependable. Jihan smiled because her conclusion matched his own. Luxury earned prestige, but serving everyday demand was how lasting empires were built. As the new workshop settled into silence, Saris gently touched one of the freshly formed vial molds, lost in memories from another age. She explained that her order had once created tools like these to protect travelers, never to enrich the powerful. The closed eye had later twisted the same knowledge into instruments of control, proving that even the greatest inventions depended on those who used them. Jihan understood the lesson immediately. If Aurelis House wanted to change the future, it had to build better systems before someone else corrupted them again. Confident in the workshop's success, Jihan carried the first Aurelis Seal Vial prototype to the docks, where real workers, not merchants, would decide whether it deserved a future. River Captain Bellin skipped polite inspection and tested it the only way he trusted, by treating it like everyday cargo. When the vial survived the impact without a single crack, the result spoke louder than any promise Jihan could have made. Bellin grinned. If the prototype could survive river life, healers across the waterways would want one. Seeing its potential immediately, Bellin brought Jihan to the dock authority, where the biggest trading decisions were made. There he introduced Captain Gregor Hames, a dockmaster whose approval carried enough weight to shape the flow of commerce. Rather than accept claims, Gregor demanded proof with his own hands. After watching the sealed vial remain perfectly dry in a barrel of water, even the seasoned dockmaster began looking at Jihan differently. Gregor was not finished testing. He searched for flaws with the determination of someone who had seen too many products fail after bold promises. No matter how hard he shook it, the seal never weakened, and everyone present understood the significance before anyone spoke. Countless merchants had quietly accepted losses from broken medicine bottles for years. Jihan offered only a limited trial, but Gregor warned that success on the river attracted powerful enemies just as quickly as powerful customers. The warning proved true almost immediately when an elegant red-sailed vessel approached the docks. Its owner stepped ashore with effortless confidence, as though every conversation on the river already belonged to him. Gregor introduced the newcomer as Merchant Lord Pavo Strake, whose family dominated much of Luthmir's transport supply trade. The moment Pavo noticed the Aurelis prototype, the atmosphere shifted from business to rivalry. Pavo welcomed Jihan with flawless manners, but every word carried the weight of an unspoken warning. He suggested that newcomers should seek permission before entering markets controlled by established families. Bellin quietly muttered that Pavo behaved as though the entire river belonged to him. Jihan calmly replied that customers, not old bloodlines, decided who deserved success. Pavo's smile remained, but it no longer looked friendly. Pavo never raised his voice. Instead, he wrapped his warning in polite advice, making every threat sound almost reasonable. According to him, shipments could be delayed, paperwork could disappear, and busy docks could suddenly become impossible to navigate. While everyone else listened, Mirael quietly recorded every word without showing the slightest reaction. When Pavo mocked her for writing everything down, she calmly replied that accurate records had a way of outliving convenient lies. Before either side could push the confrontation any further, the arrival of a royal blue carriage drew every eye along the river. Duchess Celestine Armand stepped onto the docks, and her reputation alone was enough to silence conversations that moments earlier had been filled with tension. Although she was only passing through Luthmir, the influence of her family reached far beyond the city itself. Curious about the uneasy atmosphere, the Duchess simply asked what had caused such excitement during her visit. Mayor Corvin hurried forward to welcome the Duchess, while Pavo quickly exchanged confidence for flawless courtesy. Jihan greeted her with equal respect, careful to appear neither intimidated nor eager to impress. Rather than focusing on the popular Lumisilk products, Celestine's attention settled on the unfamiliar seal vial prototype. With a single request for a demonstration, the private dispute instantly became a public test that no one could avoid. Jihan filled the Aurelis Seal Vial with healing liquid and invited everyone to judge its quality through action rather than promises. Gregor, Belen, and Lyra each tested a different part of its performance, leaving little room for doubt. Celestine observed every reaction in silence, measuring not only the invention but also the character of the people behind it. As whispers spread through the crowd, Pavo realized the conversation was no longer under his control. The Duchess recognized the value almost immediately because safe medical transport mattered far beyond Luthmir's river trade. She requested the first opportunity to negotiate once the product completed proper verification. Instead of rushing to secure noble support, Jihan insisted that independent healers test the vials before any exclusive agreement was discussed. That answer earned Celestine's respect, while Pavo watched another piece of his influence quietly slip away. Just as the demonstration seemed to be ending, a nervous young alchemist forced his way through the gathering crowd with something important on his mind. He introduced himself as Reuven Pell, a former apprentice who had once worked under Strake River Supplies. The instant Pavo recognized him, the warmth disappeared from his face, revealing a history neither of them wanted to explain publicly. Reuven declared that he could prove the seal vial's quality, if Pavo stopped using fear to silence those who spoke the truth. His accusation changed the mood of the docks in an instant. Reuven claimed that Strake had knowingly sold fragile potion bottles for years, forcing customers to keep buying replacements. When he tried to expose the flaw, his license had been blacklisted before anyone could hear his evidence. Pavo dismissed him as a bitter former apprentice, but Jihan had seen this pattern before. Another powerful business had been built on keeping people dependent. Rather than allow the argument to continue, Duchess Celestine called for an immediate public comparison. If both sides believed they were right, then the products themselves would settle the debate. Reuven presented a standard Strake bottle while Lyra carefully prepared identical healing samples under everyone's watch. With Ceres inspecting the mana seals, the growing crowd fell silent, waiting for the truth to reveal itself. The outcome arrived faster than anyone expected. After a simple impact test, the Strake bottle began leaking exactly as Reuven had described. The Aurelis Seal Vial endured the very same test without losing a single drop. Pavo denied any knowledge of the defect, but Gregor had heard enough. An official investigation into Strake's river supplies would begin immediately. Once the crowd dispersed, Pavo approached Jihan with a very different proposal. He offered to purchase every Aurelis Seal Vial in private, promising wealth while quietly suggesting they should remain luxury goods. Jihan immediately recognized the real objective: control the supply, protect inflated prices, and preserve the old system under a different name. He refused without hesitation. Pavo accepted the answer with a calm smile, but his final warning made it clear that the struggle on the river had only just begun. After the confrontation finally ended, Jihan stood alone by the river, letting the noise of the docks drift into the background. Lyra joined him and joked that he had an unusual talent for making influential merchants into lifelong enemies. Jihan answered that progress almost always collided with people who benefited from keeping things the way they were. Lyra smiled at the quiet determination in his voice, realizing that no amount of pressure would make him abandon the path he believed was right. Later that evening, Mirael found Jihan reviewing trade plans beneath the warm glow of a lantern. Instead of discussing business, she asked the one question he had been avoiding: whether Lyra's growing feelings made him uncomfortable. For once, Jihan had no quick answer. This was a problem that couldn't be solved with strategy or careful calculations. He finally admitted that feelings themselves never frightened him, hurting someone because of them did. Mirael quietly reminded him that honesty was the only path that protected everyone. After a long silence, Mirael gathered the courage to reveal what had been growing inside her heart. She confessed that standing beside Jihan was the one place where she truly felt safe, and saying those words was harder than facing any danger. She couldn't tell whether it was gratitude, loyalty, love, or something still waiting to be understood. Jihan never interrupted. When she finished, he gently told her there was no need to rush a name for feelings that were still finding their shape. The quiet moment was interrupted when Selene appeared at the doorway, only to hesitate after sensing the atmosphere inside. For perhaps the first time, she chose silence instead of teasing, ready to leave without disturbing them. Mirael invited her to stay, deciding that honesty was stronger than silent misunderstandings. As Selene joined them, the rivalry that had lingered between the two women slowly gave way to an open conversation. Selene admitted that battles had always been easier for her than speaking honestly about her own heart. Fighting beside Jihan had become so natural that the feeling itself was beginning to scare her more than any monster ever could. Mirael gently reminded her that fear did not make those feelings any less real. Jihan refused to make promises he couldn't keep, but he also refused to pretend nothing had changed. The fragile silence that followed carried more honesty than words ever could. The following morning, Sora arrived with two energetic twins whose confidence far exceeded their age. Nia quickly proved she had a gift for collecting rumors, numbers, and the little details most adults ignored. Her brother Nilo balanced that talent with remarkable speed, always knowing where people and shipments seemed to appear. After hearing what they could offer, Jihan welcomed both of them for a trial week, sensing they would become valuable eyes across the docks. The twins justified that decision almost immediately. Nia overheard that several Aurelis crates had been moved away from their assigned storage area without permission. At nearly the same time, Nilo spotted strike workers lingering around the wrong warehouse, turning suspicion into a clear pattern. Their report reached Sora, then Mirael, and finally Jihan. Without realizing it, the first battle of the river trade war had already begun. Jihan hurried to the warehouse and found the missing Aurelis crates exactly where they should never have been. Someone had positioned them beside dangerous alchemy waste, creating the perfect setup for a devastating accusation. If officials discovered the scene first, Aurelis House could lose its reputation before the truth had a chance to surface. Rhea immediately understood the trap. Whoever planned it was counting on inspectors arriving at precisely the right moment. Rather than panic, Jihan calmly turned the trap against its creators. Using a small portal, he secured the genuine Aurelis shipment inside his hidden space before anyone could interfere. Mirael replaced the originals with carefully marked decoy crates, while Lyra left a written demand for witnesses to preserve the evidence. When footsteps approached outside, Rhea opened the warehouse door herself. The people waiting were about to discover a very different scene than they expected. The false inspectors froze the instant they saw Captain Gregor and Knight Elise already standing inside. Nia and Nilo confidently identified the strike worker responsible for moving the crates, giving the investigation a clear starting point. Mirael presented detailed records that exposed the illegal relocation, leaving almost no room for excuses. Gregor ordered the imposters arrested on the spot. Pavo's carefully prepared scheme collapsed before it could damage Aurelis House. That evening, Pavo stood aboard his red-sailed vessel, staring silently toward the lights of Jihan's inn. A raven bearing the mark of the closed eye landed beside him, carrying an offer that transformed business rivalry into something far more dangerous. Lord Varric promised support in exchange for Jihan's spatial secret, revealing that the river conflict was only one piece of a much larger game. As Pavo prepared for the coming auction,